Okay, welcome back to Parsha Perspectives for today. Thank you for your flexibility. Baruch Hashem for Simchas. We'll be traveling, so I need to move the shir to this afternoon, and grateful that you are here for it. I want to thank our generous Parsha series sponsors, Becky and Avi Katz and family, in memory of David Grossman, sponsored the Parsha shir in memory of David Ben Menachem Manush. This afternoon shir is also sponsored by Golda Sadowski in memory of her dear uncle, Rabbi Yehuda Leib Kurtzer, and in honor of her dear aunt, Yibada L'chaim Tovim Va'aruchim Doris Kurtzer. Of course, we miss Rabbi Kurtzer, an incredibly special man. And sponsored by Judy Rosen in memory of her beloved husband, Marvin Elimelech Baruch Ben Zion. His yahrzeit was the 19th of Shvat. I certainly remember Marvin from my youth. And by the Wolk family in commemoration of the 5th yahrzeit of Rebbetzin Annette Wolk. And by Debbie Moskowitz. And I also dedicated in loving memory of her granddaughter, the precious Neshama Esti Moskowitz, Esther T. Labasra of Gabriel Pinchas, on her 2nd yahrzeit. And everyone's invited back this evening at 8 o'clock for a siyum and shir in her memory. Also, before we begin, I just want to mention, I'm incredibly excited to share with you that our shul is moving forward to the future as we're preparing to launch our $6 million campaign to complete our campus, our expansion, our impact, to double the difference we're able to make, the amount of activity and all that goes on here on a regular basis. And we're going to invite everyone to be builders with us in building the Jewish people. We're building the campus. When we finish building the campus, we can really build, which is building our future, building the Jewish people. And that's not only for our local community, it's for our global community. You're going to hear a lot more about it. We're not doing our regular global campaign this year, but we're inviting the greater global community who read, listen, watch, enjoy, and feel connected to who we are and what we are about to be involved as well. So you'll hear a lot more about that. We're looking for ambassadors and people to give and contribute and help and raise and help us make this difference. We just want to build. We just want to be Marbek Vod Shamayim. And I can't overstate how important it is for everybody to help us spread and share this campaign and create excitement and generate a buzz about it. We can't do it without everybody, and we're really looking forward to it. Parshas Mishpatim, page 416, in the Art Scroll Stone Chumash. Ve'ela Mishpatim asher tasim lefnehem. Ve'ela ha-Mishpatim. The Vav HaChibur, the Vav that connects this Parsha to the one that came before. We start every year with this insight because it is so fundamental, it is so foundational to Judaism, to Yiddishkeit, to our lives and our lifestyles, to Torah and what it's all about. And this time I want to share it. All the Mefarshim say the same thing. It's just a question who I quote that year for the same insight. So I was fortunate and blessed to get, Baruch Hashem, delivered to me a new Chumash by Koren. And this is the Rabbi Sachs Chumash, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Zechrono Levracha, who had such an impact on all of us and on Jews around the world. They compiled his insights and organized it around the Chumash, and it's really a wonderful, wonderful work. Not only the beautiful translation, and it has Rashi and Unklos, and also Rabbi Sachs's insights. So I want to share with you what Rabbi Sachs writes on this opening of our Parsha, Ve'ela ha-Mishpatim. And he writes the following. He writes, Rashi comments on this pasuk, and these are the laws. Whenever it says Eila, it seems to nullify what came before. But Ve'ela, Mosef al Rishonim. Ve'ela is not discontinuity with what has been stated, but Ve'ela signals a continuity. Ma Rishonim Sinai, just as the former comes from Sinai, so too Af Ela mi Sinai. It's all from our Sinai. The Parsha is dealing with the Parsha's Mizbeach. So why do we have civil law placed as a juxtaposition with the laws concerning the Mizbeach? Lomar Lacha Tasim Sanhedrin Eitzel Mizbeach. To tell us, place the Sanhedrin near the Mizbeach. Asher Tasim Lefnehem, Rashi says, place them before you. Amar LaKadosh Baruch Hu LaMoshe. The Almighty said to Moshe, Lo tala al dait chalomer eshna lehem aperek v'alacha shnayim ashlosha pa'am machet yistur b'fiyem ve'ena matriach atzmi lavinam tamei adavar pirusha lekach nema asher tasim lefnehem keshulchan aruch. I will teach that section of law 2-3 times till they know it, but I will not take the trouble to make them understand the reason. Therefore, the Torah states that you shall set before them like a fully laid table with everything ready for eating. This is the source of the code of Jewish law we call the Shulchan Aruch, the table that is set. And I've mentioned before that the Ramah of Moshe Isla takes the Rav Yosef Karo's table, and what does he do? His commentary, the Ramah's commentary, is called Mappa. He puts a tablecloth on the table. And then you have the commentary of the Beis Yosef, the Bayis Chadash. We have all of the Taz, the Shach, all of the rabbinic one-upsmanship about their commentary, really elucidating But it's all predicated on our pasuk, Asher Tasim Lefnehem Kishulchan Aruch. It's like a set table. Come, eat, and enjoy. And writes Rabbi Sachs the following. 3 remarkable propositions are being set out here. The first is that just as the general principle of Judaism, Aseres HaDibros, means not 10 commandments, but 10 utterances or overarching principles that are divine, so are the details. There are those who believe that what is holy in Judaism is its broad vision, never so compellingly expressed as in the Decalogue at Sinai. The truth, however, is that just as the former were given at Sinai, so these were given at Sinai. The greatness of Yiddishkeit is not simply in its noble vision, but in the way it brings this vision down to earth in detailed legislation. The second principle, no less fundamental, is that civil law is not secular law. We do not believe in the idea that render to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what belongs to God. We believe in the separation of powers, but not in the secularization of law or the spiritualization of faith. The Sanhedrin, Supreme Court, must be placed near the Mizbeach to teach that law itself must be driven by religious vision. The third principle is the idea that law does not belong to lawyers. It is the heritage of every Jew. Legal knowledge is not the closely guarded property of an elite. It is, in the famous phrase, Morasha, it is the heritage of Yaakov's assembly, Kilas Yaakov. Judaism expected everyone to know and understand the law. Just this past Shabbos afternoon, I was in a Beis Medrash, and I saw little groupings of people learning, and I saw individuals studying on their own, and I said, the beautiful sounds of Kol Torah, of Jews of all ages and all backgrounds and all stages of life, not professional rabbis and teachers, lawyers and doctors and retirees who are sitting and studying Torah. And where else do you see this? Can you point in America to places where people get together and say, bring your copy of the Constitution, bring your civil law or your tort law or your criminal law books, let's read them, let's analyze them, let's study them. Maybe that happens, and we probably wouldn't have, the nicest things to say about the kind of people who do that. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. I'm sure it's a hobby of some, but it's not far-reaching. And for us, it's meant to be normal, universal. Torah is everyone's birthright and heritage, accessible to all. Classes printed in every language, accessible to all. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So Rabbi Sachs says here at the beginning of Mishpatim, Ve'ela HaMishpatim, with the Vav HaChibur, connecting it to last week's Parsha Yisro to tell us that there is no secularization of law. It's religious. Ve'ela HaMishpatim, civil law, tort law, criminal law. It is just as significant as Sinai. It's not just a religion of spiritual highs. Let's have a kumsitz and a tish. Let's have a fabrengen. Let's have a spiritual high. But I'm not interested in when I go to business, when I go to work, when I go to law. But we take the spiritual high from Har Sinai and we carry it with us wherever we go. As I like to say, in the boardroom, in the operating room, we take it into every room that we go into, the courtroom, wherever we perform, wherever we fulfill our mission, our duty, our mandate. The Torah is the guide, it informs, it inspires. So the Vav, that Vav HaChibur, it's as if that Vav HaChibur, it means that we connect, the Vav HaChibur, that Vav that connects, we connect our experience of coming to shul in the morning with then going to work right afterwards. The Torah comes with us to our office, to our place of business, to our gym, to the supermarket. It comes with us wherever we go. We don't leave it last week at the top of Har Sinai. Oh yeah, that Akiva concert. Ooh, what a spiritual high. The energy was electric. It was amazing. That was great. But that was in shul. That's the spiritual high. And then I go to work. It's secular, it's mundane, it's profane. No, ve'ela hamishpatim. We take that all with us wherever we go, and that sacred Torah, it belongs to all. Let's continue Perek Chaf Aleph, Pasuk Chaf Tes. So we begin these laws and we jump into them. The first law, of course, the law of slavery, Eved Ivri, the slave, and the slave who says, I want to remain a slave. And we're not going to get into this right now, but the different forms of slavery, and what does it mean? Do we still have slavery? And was it our understanding of a slavery that was abolished? Does Judaism embrace a slavery that was abolished? How could we subscribe to the notion that a person could be property, could be owned? We'll leave that for another time. Then we get into murder and manslaughter. Pasuk Chaf Tes. Turn to page 422. Penalty for bodily injury. 2 people get in a fight. What do we have to pay? How do we compensate? How do we make whole? What's meant to be taken literally? Where does the Torah, the oral tradition, come in? We get to Pasuk Chaf Tes. Pasuk Chaf Tes says, V'im shor nagachu mitmol shel shom, V'huad beba'alav v'lo yishmerenu, v'hemes isha o isha, hashor yisakel, v'gam ba'alav yumas. Death caused by an animal. If it was an ox that gores habitually from yesterday and the day before yesterday, so an animal gores. And how do we establish a pattern? It's machlokas, 2 times or 3 times, trezimni, tlasimni. How do you establish a pattern 2 times or 3 times? But now we have a pattern. And does the pattern predict? Or does the pattern show a precedent? I'm giving you lumdus, Reb Chaim, Reb Shimon. We're not getting into it right now. How a chazaka works, trezimni, tlasimni, is a pattern. Tell me what happened, or does it predict what's going to happen? Leave the lumdus for now. But the Torah tells us, if a person owns such an animal, who should know, I need to bring a shmira mu'ula, I have to have a higher level of guarding it because it has a pattern of goring, and its owner was negligent. The owner was warned that this animal is in extreme danger. This animal has harmed, has injured, has killed, and the person didn't guard it at a higher level, and now it kills again. The ox is stoned, and the owner shall die. The ox is stoned, and the owner shall die. Now, in Kofer Yushas Alav and Asam Pidyon Nafsha Kachlash Yushas Alav, Torah goes on to say, an atonement payment shall be assessed. He pays a redemption for his life. We don't actually put the owner to death. It's not a capital punishment for the owner. The owner can actually pay a penalty and not have to be put to, and is not put to death. But the Torah tells us at first that the owner is. Why? Vihuad biba'alav. What is Vihuad biba'alav? Its owner was warned. Says Rabbi Sachs in his new Koran Chumash, the Parsha entitled Mishpatim begins, as we might expect, with Mishpatim, retributive justice or the rule of law, and specifically with cases delineating a person's responsibility to compensate for harm he or she causes. A free society must be governed by law, impartially administered, through which the guilty are punished, the innocent acquitted, the injured compensated, and human rights secured. Tzedakah, by contrast, because the Parsha now is going to get into tzedakah. We're going to go from law, compensation, responsibility. Tzedakah refers to distributive justice, to less procedural and more substantive idea, which becomes the focus from this pasuk. Hashem for the Israelites is actively concerned with the economic and political order, especially with those who, because they lack power or even a voice, become the victims of injustice and inequity. The society that Klal Yisrael are to construct, we are told, will stand as a living contrast to what they experienced in Egypt. What was it like in Egypt? Poverty, persecution, enslavement. Their release from bondage was only the first stage on their journey to freedom. The second, their covenant with Hashem, involves collective responsibility to ensure that no one will be excluded from the shared graciousness of the community and its life. This required both mishpat, the rule of law, and what word do we always find in that expression? Mishpat and tzedakah. A just distribution of resources, a fair chance at a dignified livelihood. This view has close affinities with the concept of freedom, and Rabbi Sachs develops. Now, I want to just carefully point out that Rabbi Sachs is not describing a extremely progressive or liberal or woke sense of distributing wealth and everyone's entitled, this is an apolitical 501c3 Parsha perspective. Everyone's entitled to their viewpoint. But neither Rabbi Sachs nor the Torah are endorsing an extreme version. Tzedakah is 10%. And the Torah goes out of its way in our Parsha to davka say that you only help someone who's trying to help themselves. And we kick in and compensate to try to help the person who's helping himself. But what Rabbi Sachs is pointing out here so brilliantly, so importantly, so critically, so fundamentally, is that the very Parsha that's called Mishpatim is dealing not only with what we would call justice, mishpat. What happens if I ding the bumper of your car when I'm pulling out of my parking spot? What happens, what's the halacha, if someone comes to shul with the flu and 3 people get the flu and can't go to work and aren't paid for the days they miss? Is that person accountable for coming to shul with the flu and making other people sick? These are questions of mishpat. What happens if someone takes a loan and doesn't repay it? What happens if somebody defaults? These are all questions of mishpat. But our Parsha quickly pivots to deal not only with mishpat, but mishpat always goes hand in hand with tzedek, tzedakah. Because under the Torah, it's not just a strict criminal tort civil law, but the notion of righteousness and the notion of taking care of the underprivileged and the notion of making all feel visible, even those who are positioned to feel invisible. And we'll give one last Rabbi Sachs insight with this new Chumash, Parachav Beis Pasuk Chaf, where he says, Skipping along, we've got the 4 shomrim, damage, guarding. There's so much. Mishpatim, every pasuk you could elaborate and elucidate and analyze and delve into. There's so much. Every parsha, particularly Parsha's Mishpatim. But Perchav Beis, pasuk chaf, theft, laws of shomrim, the 4 types of guardians of shomrim. V'ger lo sonev lo silchatzenu. Page 430, chapter 22, verse 20. Don't taunt or aggravate or oppress a ger, a stranger. Ki gerim hayisim be'eretz Mitzrayim. Why? Because you were strangers. You know what it means to be an outsider. You were foreigners. And here writes Rabbi Sachs, Parachav Beis, Pasuk Chav. Mishpatim contains many laws of social justice against taking advantage of a widow or orphan. By the way, just because segments of Judaism have made their entire Judaism social justice doesn't mean that there's no place for social justice in everyone's Judaism. We tend to make a mistake of thinking that if one segment takes something to the extreme, we can't all want Mashiach. That's just for the Shtibel minyan. No, we all want Mashiach, whatever minyan you daven at. Social justice is fundamental to all of Judaism, even if some segments have made it their entire Judaism. So Rabbi Sachs writes, Mishpatim contains many laws of social justice against taking advantage of a widow or orphan. For example, we're taking interest on a loan to a fellow member of the covenantal community. The first and last of these laws, however, is the much repeated command against harming a ger, a stranger or a migrant. Clearly something fundamental is at stake here. According to Rabbi Eliezer, the Torah warns against the wrongdoing of a ger in 36 places. Others say 46 places, Gemara Bava Metzia and Tes. Whatever the precise number, the repetition throughout Chumash is remarkable. Sometimes the stranger is mentioned along with the poor, other times with the widow or orphan. On several occasions, the Torah specifies there shall be one law for you, for the ger and for the native born alike. Not only must the stranger not be wronged, he or she must be included in the positive welfare provisions of Jewish society. The Torah asks, why should you not hate the stranger? Because you once stood where he stands now. You know the heart of the stranger because you were once a stranger in the land of Egypt. If you are human, so is he. If he is less than human, so are you. You must fight the hatred in your heart, says Hashem, as I once fought the greater ruler and the strongest empire in the ancient world on your behalf. I made you into the world's archetypal strangers so that you would fight for the rights of strangers. There is only one reply strong enough to answer the question, why should I not hate the stranger? Because the stranger is me. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting secure borders. There's nothing wrong with wanting legal immigration. Torah here is not endorsing extreme positions. It is saying within strong borders in Israel or whatever country we live, within emphasizing and focusing on legal immigration, it's talking about literally and metaphorically the strangers among us, the foreigner. Someone comes to shul for a first time. Someone's never been in an Orthodox shul before. They're a ger. They're a stranger. They're an outsider to that experience. Somebody comes to a kiddush. Somebody comes to an Ishay event, a men's club event. Somebody comes to the shir, the daf yomi. They've never been there before. They're a ger. They're an outsider. They're a stranger to that experience. They're an outlier. And our repeated 36 or 46 times is love them, be sensitive to them, be inclusive of them, be sensitive to them. And that's something that applies literally and metaphorically and is indicative of certainly Rabbi Sachs's sensitivity and commentary. It's a beautiful chumash, and I'm so glad to have it and add it to our insights. Parachav Beis Pasuk Chaf Daled. Moving along. In Kesef Talve Esami, when you lend money to my people, Esani Mach, to the poor person who's with you, Lo Siyelo Kinoshe. Don't treat him like you're a creditor. You're not a bank. You're not cold-hearted. Lo Sisimun Alav Neshach. Now, Sunday mornings at our Smichas Chaver, for many months we've been studying the laws, what, of Gordon? Rabbis. We have been going through the detailed laws of interest. Fascinating. How do you define interest? How does the heter iska work? If someone borrows a car and they want to return it by filling the gas tank, can they give back more gas than they used up in the car when you gave it? Is that ribbis? Have they now paid you back with interest? Can you buy now, pay later? Or have you essentially allowed a cash advance? Can you buy one, get one free? Can you charge a late fee on a service or on a tenant on a rental property? These are some of the things that we are examining together. Is a limited liability corporation, LLC, different when it comes to the laws of interest? How does it work with a trust? Just this past Sunday, we followed the fascinating case that happened in the 80s and the 90s in Israel, When Israeli banks, Jewish-owned banks, make loans and employ a heter iska, is there actual liability for the borrower? And what happens if they default? But here the Torah tells us, while you're allowed to charge interest to a non-Jew, you are forbidden from charging interest to a Jew. Why are you forbidden for charging interest to a Jew? Where do the laws of Rabbis appear? In that code of law, the Shulchan Aruch, they do not appear in Choshen Mishpat. They do not appear in economic, financial, interpersonal law. Where do they appear? In the laws of Yoredeya, religious law. Why? Because charging interest is not unethical. It's not immoral. It's not a financial crime. It's not theft. What is it? The Torah wants to condition and cultivate us to see a fellow Jew, every fellow Jew, as a member of our family. There's a time value to money. When I have my money, I could spend my money, I could use my money. When I have my money, I can make money on my money. So the present value of my money might be $100, but if I invest my money, it's going to give a return, or the liquidity allows me to use it. And if I lend my money to you and I don't have access to it, there's an opportunity cost. I lost the ability to make money on my money. So when I ask you to cover the opportunity cost, I'm not doing something unethical or immoral. I'm actually just recovering what I could have or would have or should have had if I held on to my own money and invested it. So when a stranger comes to me, a neighbor, an acquaintance says, can I borrow money? And I say, sure, but you got to cover my opportunity cost. That money in the bank would have been making this percent. If I'm going to give it to you instead, you've got to pay the interest. That's nothing wrong. There's no law in Choshen Mishpat that says that's unethical or immoral. But what happens if my brother comes, my son comes, my daughter comes, my sister comes and says, hey, I've hit some hard times. Can I borrow some money? And I say, sure, but you're going to have to sign this contract and pay this interest rate. I say, ooh, you're not such a good sibling. Family, when family needs help, then you don't start charging interest. So the Torah wants us to view every Jew as a member of our immediate family. Nothing immoral, nothing unethical. Just don't charge interest to a friend. And here the Torah tells us, so don't charge interest. And that is the reason why. And as I said, some of those details about how to practice that, there's even a discussion. I don't want to turn anyone off by raising this question. We might get into it. There's even a question. When you borrow money from someone and you return the loan, you repay the loan, can you say thank you? Can you be effusive in your gratitude? Can you sponsor Kiddush at the shul to thank the person who lent you the money and bailed you out? Or maybe that's giving them a benefit that is considered to be an interest. So here the Torah says, don't charge interest. Comes along Lavos Eish, Rav Druk. Now, in Kesef Talveh Esami, the pasuk we just read said, if you lend Kesef Talveh Esami, you lend to your people, Eshani Imach, a poor person with you. A poor person with you. What does that mean? A poor person with you. Eshani Imach. Says Rashi, Eshani Imach, having mistakel be'atzmecha kilu ata ha'ani. Look at yourself like you're the poor person. Why do we describe the poor person with you? See the poor person as if you're the poor person. Just like Kigerim, Rabbi Sachs said, why should you not hate a stranger? Because you are the stranger. Why should you help the poor person? See yourself as a poor person. So Rav Druk is bothered. How does that work? I don't understand. I check my account, I open my phone, I open the app, and it says I got money in the bank. I own my home, maybe more than one home. I own a car, maybe more than one car. I own stocks and bonds and CDs, and I've got a net worth. So how am I supposed to see myself as a poor person? I can't alter my reality, my self-perception. I know the reality. Is that really possible? That Rashi Chazal are saying, Ha'ani imach, the other poor person with you. You're a poor person, he's a poor person, so help him. Help one another. I'm not a poor person. I know I can pay my bills. I have food on my table. I have a few shekel in the bank. So says Rav Druk, Yesha pirshu bezeh ima asher yada v'yifnim v'yashav alavava shekol oshra eina shalo ela hakol niton lo b'matana me'is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. K'mo shekasav the pasuk in Chagai li hakesef v'li azav nu'um Hashem tzivakos v'yavin od ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu hifkid biyado as mamono b'shvil anasos b'nisayon ha'osher. I have a great opportunity. One of the great privileges of being the rabbi is the rabbi's discretionary fund. I am a steward, not alone, with others, of incredible chesed funds to help distribute them, to change lives, to impact lives, to uplift lives. It's an amazing, amazing feeling to be able to take those funds and make a difference. Purim's coming up. We're going to help people with Purim. Pesach, our market, you know the difference that we make. Last year we gave away 1,000 pounds of matzah and endless eggs, and you know the price of eggs this year. Even more people are going to need help with them. And it's an amazing feeling, amazing feeling. One of the great jobs out there, if anyone here is looking, apply for it. If you can be the director of a foundation, it's fantastic. You take foundation money and you have the ability to give it away. So Torah comes along and it says, we should all look at our own money as if we are stewards of God's money. It's not our own. Donor advised funds are essentially that. Person has the tax advantage of taking the money and putting it in a donor advised fund, and now it's just fun to give it away. And now you're not thinking, well, if I give it away, I have less for my vacation, less for the extension of my home, less for a new car for myself. It's already not mine. It's already in a fund. It's already been allocated, set aside. I've already got the tax benefit. And now I just get the fun and the joy of giving it out and helping people with it. And says the pasuk in Chagai, Li hakesef v'li hazahav. Live your whole life as if all your money is a donor advised fund. It's not your money. The bank account may say your name, but it's not yours. To whom does it belong? Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Almighty. And we have the privilege and pleasure of being the stewards, of being the directors, of getting to choose how to distribute it. And why did he give it to us? Why did he give it to us? You meet with your financial advisor. You meet with your broker. And they give you a report and an update, and they show you the return. They tell you how it was invested, and they make some suggestions about what you should do with the following year. Now, in their investment bank, that account shows under their name. But is it their money? They know it's not their money. They are investing your money. And what determines whether you give them more money to invest? What will determine it? In that money, what kind of return they can show. If they have a good meeting, if they beat the market, if they do well, or in a downturn they do less poorly, then you give them more money. And if they don't, you say, we're going to try somewhere else. And the Almighty is no different. He invests in us. And when we give him a good return, he gives us more. And we show him a poor return, he says, I'm probably better off giving it elsewhere. And that's what this pasuk means to say. In Kesef Talveh Es Ami Es Ha'ani Imach, we are all poor. On our own, we are bankrupt. On our own, we are impoverished. On our own, we are indigent. Any success we have and anything we have is the graciousness and the goodness of God. That doesn't mean that we can't be proud of our hard work in life and what we've earned. We can be proud. But let's also be honest. There are people who are equally smart, who worked equally as hard, and they did not have the success. To whatever degree we had success, it is a function of our hard work for which we should be proud. But the senior partner in all of our success is Hashem. And if he didn't want it and will it, we wouldn't have it. So fundamentally, if you peel away the surface, we are all equally poor. Es ha'ani imach. The poor person has his challenge, how to navigate life in poverty. And the wealthy person has his or her challenge, how to navigate life being a proper, faithful steward of the money. Whatever I'm holding is not mine. I'm just a steward of. Look at oneself as an ani. And therefore you treat the poor person with honor, with dignity, with respect. Because you know who else is poor? We are, fundamentally. And we could be tomorrow. And even if you've invested so wisely that nobody could touch it or take it, it's secure. You know what Hashem could take that's more valuable than money and that no money can buy is our health. Our health. So whatever we have, be so grateful for it. So that's the Ehes Ha'ani Imach. Rashi says, Mistaka ba'atzmacha, look at yourself like you're an ani, but I'm not poor. But my bank account shows a net worth. How can I see myself as poor? Because recognize that net worth is fragile and vulnerable and fleeting, is not fundamentally mine, could disappear at any moment. And while the bank account may say my name, just like the broker shows that he has my account, but it's not his money. It's not our money, and Hashem could take it any moment. He then quotes the Ashach, who has a different interpretation, a different beautiful insight, but I want to skip. Lo tiyelo kenoshe. Don't be a creditor. Rashi says, Lo titvayenu b'chazaka, im ata yodeh she'en lo, al tidom elav ki'ilu helviso. Ela ki'ilu lo helviso, klomar, lo tachli meyu. Let's say you know he has no way of paying it back. Don't pressure, don't aggravate, don't squeeze him, don't be a creditor. Wait until you know he has a way to pay. Again, we're treating the members of our family different than we would a stranger, and that's our responsibility and our obligation here. The Medrash Tanchuma says in this pasuk, everyone who makes a mistake, everyone who does something wrong, Hashem sits in judgment and justice over us. We see this in the days of Achav with Micha, and Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Hashem is surrounded on his right and on his left by judges who evaluate the person before him. But if somebody lends with interest, then a Kadosh Baruch Hu does not enter the judgment himself, but rather there's no judgment. He doesn't confer with other justices. Immediately judgment and justice is carried out. We see from this medrash that there's a hanhaga mida keneged mida. Mida keneged mida. There is no flexibility, no favor when it comes to somebody who lends with interest. It's harsh, it's cruel, it squeezes the other party, it takes advantage of the person in a vulnerable position. There are businesses that today are associated as Jewish businesses that charge exorbitant interest rates that are the opposite of Jewish businesses. We don't take advantage of people in difficult positions and squeeze them, even if they need that money and they're desperate. Torah has very little tolerance for a person who charges ribbis. Torah is very unforgiving of such a person. So therefore, es ha'ani imach, if you're going to charge ribbis, you're going to be an ani, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to carry out and exact strict justice and judgment on such a person. Let's keep going. First we have here interest. And then the Torah goes on and says, Im chavol tachbol salmas re'echa, you take your fellow's garment as a security. Now you're not allowed to charge interest, but you are allowed to secure your loan. So if somebody comes to you and borrows money, you are allowed to say, provide for me collateral. How can I secure my loan? How can I protect myself? How do I know you're not going to default? Give me your watch. Give me that dress. Give me that outfit. Give me that suit. So Torah says if you take your fellow's garment as a security, ad bo hashemesh teshibenu lo. You get it till sunset and you got to give it back. Ki iksusa levada hisim lasola oro, b'mei yishkav hayakitzak ilai, v'shamati ki chanun ani. For it alone is his clothing, it's his garment. And what should he sleep? And what should he lie down? So if he will cry out, I shall listen, for I am compassionate. So Hashem says, even if you're holding collateral, you got to give the collateral back to the poor person who needs it at night, so they have it. Because if they would be deprived it at night, and they would cry out and scream out, Hashem says, I will hear their cries. You know why? You may not be compassionate, but I am. Says Shmuel Berenbaum, Kasha, how does the Torah here end? Hashem says, give him back the collateral when he needs it at night. Why? Because if he screams out, Vishamati, I'm going to hear him, Ki chanun ani. I am compassionate. Now, the Torah gives a reason why Hashem is going to hear, because I'm compassionate. Yet, in the previous Parsha, with the prohibition to mistreat the ger yasam va'almana, the stranger and the widow and orphan, Torah says, Shamoa eshma tza'akaso. I will surely hear their scream. Torah doesn't say ki chanun ani. So why here? Both places Hashem says, I'm going to hear the cries of the vulnerable. I'm going to hear the cries of the fragile. I'll hear the cry of the widow and the orphan, but it doesn't give us a reason I'll hear their cry. And yet here, the poor person who relies on that collateral and needs to get it back, Torah says, if you don't give it back and they cry, Hashem says, surely I will hear. Why? Ki chanun ani, because I'm compassionate. What's the difference? Yesh Lomar says of Shmuel Berenbaum, because when it comes to the widow or the orphan or the stranger, the reason is obvious. Torah doesn't have to give you a reason. These people are in a position in life that they need support and love. And if you take advantage of them, it doesn't have to do with Hashem's kindness and compassion He's going to hear. But when it comes to the mashko, when it comes to the collateral, I'm entitled to take the collateral, and I don't have to return it to you. I deserve to hold on to it. I made a kinyan on it. And there's a tircha. I have to go and get it each time. Every night I got to go bother and get the collateral and give it to you. And the next day go collect it again. Why should I have to go through that pain? Moreover, I did something incredibly kind I didn't have to do. Who said I had to give you a loan to begin with? If I hold your collateral, I hold it until you pay the loan. Why should I have to return it and go through that pain? So therefore the Torah goes out of its way, says, Ki chanun ani, because I'm compassionate. We, imitatio Dei, we have to walk in Hashem's footsteps. We have to follow His way. We have to follow in His footsteps. We have to walk in His way. We have to be just like Hashem. Not only when it comes to this person, Ki chanun ani, not only in the case of collateral, when it doesn't sound instinctive or intuitive. Maybe I'd say, I'm kind enough to lend money. What do I have to go give back the collateral? No. Ki chanun ani. When it comes to din, we go lifnim mishuras hadin. We're not satisfied with only following the strict letter of the law. We go above and beyond with the law, because olam chesed yibana, the world is built on kindness, and we look for these opportunities to go above and beyond in this kindness. Parachav Gimel, chapter 23, verse Hey. Torah goes on, integrity of the judicial process, how the justice system works. If you encounter an ox of your enemy or his donkey wandering, return it to him repeatedly. You might say, this is my enemy. Why do I have to give it back? Maybe I'll even have some joy and pleasure in the enemy losing his property. No, Torah says you have to. Pasuk Gimel, Pasuk Hey. Turn the page, 434. Ki sir'eh chamor sona'acha rovetz tachas masa'o. If you see the donkey of someone you hate crouching under its burden, v'chadata me'azov lo, would you refrain from helping him? Azov ta'azovimo. You shall surely help him. You have to help him. Step up and help him. So I want to read to you Rabbi Nachman on this pasuk. A beautiful insight from the holy Rabbi Nachman. When you see someone suffering or struggling, someone has a flat tire, right? The Torah's view or description, the donkey is walking, it's carrying a heavy load, it's collapsing under its load. It needs to be unloaded, it needs to be unpacked. Donkey's going to collapse. Donkey's going to fall apart. So step up, step in, get involved, help out. You got to help out. And whom does the Torah say you have to help? Not you see your friend with a flat tire, you see your friend ran out of gas. Torah says specifically, you see your enemy. You see the person that you hate. You got to step up, you got to help them. Says Rabbi Nachman, Im Yehudi roas chamor shel Yehudi acher v'tzachas masao, ve'eino mesugal hamshich l'skadim b'glau chover hamasa. This enemy can't progress. They can't keep on the road. They're not going to get to their destination. The animal's collapsing under the load. You have to step up, step in, and help out. But kasher medubar b'chamor shel asonai, hamitzvah gedola af yoser. Not only do you have to help your friend, which is natural, you have to stop to help your enemy. You have to stop to end your enemy. So it says, Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Nassan, Rabbi Nachman's student in Likutei Halachos quotes, Hadvarim amurim lo rak be'ezra be'azara gashmis. We're not just talking here about physical helping, changing the tire, filling the gas, helping the donkey. Elagam be'ezra ruchanis. We're talking about spiritual help. Imroa adam Yehudi she'avar averos, kishu rovetz tachas masa'o. You see a Jew who's made mistakes. You see a Jew who's failed, who's come up short. So they're collapsing under their weight, collapsing under the burden of the mistakes they've made, collapsing under the choices. So what do? You have to lift them up. You want to leave them that way. They made those choices. They made their bed, let them sleep in it. They made these mistakes. They had these failures. They had these shortcomings. They had this poor judgment. No. You can't leave them. Azov ta'azovim, afilu adam gazet tzarich la'azor u'leromeim oso. So not only is it true physically, says Rabbi Nachman, it's true spiritually. You have to lift and assist and support and help and step in, not only your friend, but your enemy. Every Jew. The Aleph Institute, Rabbi Lipsker, even Jews in prison. They've made mistakes. They're accountable for the mistakes. Doesn't mean they don't deserve kosher food and a pair of tefillin and a sefer and a visit from a fellow Jew. You have to step up and step in, not only the Jew that you love, but even the one who's harder to love, even the one who maybe has made mistakes. Rav Druk in his Labotesh says on this pasuk that if you see him, Azov to Azov imo, why is it in the double language, Azov to Azov? Help him if he's helping himself, the Klal Yisrael says. If he's not, people knock on the door, they want to collect money. If you have a job or two or three and you still can't make ends meet, by all means, we should help you. But if this is the way that you're making ends meet by knocking on doors, we're not obligated to help you. When you change that tire, your friend can't sit on the side and sip a nice cold peach Snapple and watch you break your back and schwitz trying to change the tire. So when they're trying to change their tire, surely you have to help them. Azov to Azov, imo. Help the person who's trying to help themselves. If someone's not trying to help themselves, you're not obligated to bail them out and to help them. Rashi says, help the person. Onkelos understands a little bit differently. Onkelos on this pasuk writes, Onkelos says, Mishbak tishbok ma diblibach aloy saparik ime. Stop yourself from abandoning him. Make every effort to help him. Abandon what's in your heart against him and unload with him. Chidish gadol kasav kan betargum Onkelos. Azov to azov imo, einer aktiva ma'asi. Torah is not only telling us in the world of action, change the tire, fill the gas, help the donkey. HaTorah mitzaveh sa'adam, shekasher nikra lefanav kazeh, mikra sharos chamor sono, alav la'azov l'shkoach es hasina. In that moment, drop and forget the hatred. You see someone who's hurt you, injured you, harmed you, you see them going through a difficult time, you see them down and out, drop the hatred. Rak az laleches v'lifrok imo. Don't just help them, but the way Onkelos understands means azov to azov. Abandon the hatred to help them, abandon the hatred in your heart. It doesn't just mean help physically the one you hate, but continue to hate. It means find a way to work out and move on past the person that was your enemy, son-o, the person that you hated. Unburden them. But it works even more brilliantly than that. The Ramban says, and it works so beautifully, so brilliantly. What happened here? Fast forward to Sefer Dvarim, Parshas Kiseitze. Here the Torah says, help who? Sona'acha, the one that you hate. But in Parshas Kiseitze, the Torah repeats this halacha, Lo sira es chamor achicha o sharo noflim baderech. Don't see your fellow's donkey or ox falling, v'salam tamehem, and ignore them. Hakem takim imo. You have to help them. And there, the Torah formulates it, not the donkey, the flat tire, the empty gas tank of your enemy, sona'acha. By Sefer Dvarim, by the time we get to Dvarim, he's achicha. He's your brother. How did this enemy become your friend? I thought the Torah was trying to make a point. I mean, think about how powerful this point is for a moment. You're driving up Palmetto Park Road. Two cars are stopped on the side of the road, both with flat tires. One is your best friend in the world, your BFF. And the other is your arch enemy. The one who smears you and writes horrific social media posts about you and says terrible things about you in the neighborhood, hangs posters about you. Which flat tire do you help? Torah says, Gemara Bava Metzia Daf Lamed Beis derives from the fact that the Torah specifically instructs us to help someone we hate, didn't just leave it ambiguous about help the person, sona'acha, that if there's a conflict between your best friend and the one you hate, help the enemy. Help the one you hate. Conquer the inclination. Azov to azov. Abandon the hate. So I understand what happened. Torah was specifically trying to teach us this law when it comes to somebody that you're inclined to hate. And fast forward to Dvarim, and now sona'acha became achicha. How? The Ramban says something amazing. You know what happens? When you help someone that you hate, you find yourself no longer hating them. When you see the meal train email, someone sitting shiva or in a time of need, and you don't like that person hurt you. That person neglected you. That person wasn't kind to you. That person wasn't loyal, a good friend to you. But you say, you know what? I'm going to overcome that. I'm going to make them a meal. I'm going to pay that shiva call. It turns out that not only did you help someone you hate, by helping, you stop hating. Because when you help, you create an extension from yourself. You build a bridge. You invest a part of yourself. What allows generally kind and good people to sometimes be cruel and harsh? Where does achzarius? Achzarius is the Hebrew word for cruelty. Where does it come from? The great Mashgiach Rav Volba, I shared this before. He said the word achzar, cruel, comes from ach-zar. A zar is a stranger. So when someone is the other, they're a stranger, they're different, they're a foreigner. When they're zar, they're a stranger, they're the other. I have no connection to them. I have nothing in common with them. I have no relationship with them. Then they could be my enemy. But the moment I build a bridge, the moment I invest a piece of myself, the moment I show up and I help, then this ach-zar, someone who is just a stranger, becomes achicha. We turn sona'acha, the one we hate, into achicha. How? Because azov to azov imo. When we share that person's burden, when we help them, they become our best friend. We then end up loving them. We then end up becoming achicha, your brother. One of the biggest things I've tried to work on, I'm very far from perfect, since October 7th, is azov to azov. There's no room and no patience, no time for hatred. Today's day 500 of hostages still being held. 500 of hostages still being held. There may be a ceasefire, but there's still wars that are being fought on multiple fronts. Who has time for sona'acha? How could one carry hatred in their heart? Because of petty things, insignificant things, inconsequential things, or even real things. Let it go. Azov to azov. Turn sona'acha into achicha and recognize that Am Yisrael need to be there to lift and support and help and love one another. Azov to azov. Walk away. Abandon it. Who cares? Who cares? And I can tell you from personal experience since October 7th, even the people that have hurt you and hurt you publicly, if you put your arm around them and they put their arm around you, and even if you don't reconcile, and even if you don't talk through, and even if they don't take accountability for what they did, just putting your arms around each other, azov to azov, let it go, that sona'acha becomes achicha. The magic, it works. It works. Make that meal. Pay that sheva call. Do that chesed. Or just embrace so the person is not zar. And therefore, you're not an achzar. You're not treating them as just a stranger because they're not a foreigner and they're not a stranger to you. Tefer Shmuel says here on this pasuk, somewhere. Where is this? Oh, Aziva Lashon Ezra, to help. He quotes Unclus. Sarchi and Allah pasuk Mairi b'misha mitzvah lasanoso. When we talk about it, someone you hate, there are people that you're allowed to hate. Why would you be helping your enemy? When the Torah says there's someone you hate, it doesn't mean someone you hate because they cheer for the Red Sox and you like the Yankees. It doesn't mean someone you hate because you vote this way and they vote that way. It doesn't mean someone you hate because you texted them and they didn't text you back. Because you came to shul and they were sitting in your seat. If the Torah says sona'acha, it means someone whose values and whose life and whose lifestyle is you're entitled to hate. Some people, there may even be a mitzvah to hate. So why are you dafka helping him now? If it's someone that might be even a mitzvah to hate, so why is the Torah telling you now to love that person that you're allowed to, or maybe even have a mitzvah to hate? So it says, I'll just tell you outside because it's already so late. It's always so late. By minute 2 of the Parsha Shir, it's already so late. He says the following. He says, when someone is in crisis, when they're in trouble, when they're about to collapse under the load of life, we set aside the differences and disagreements and disappointments, and we jump. And we learn this from Avram. Avram saw his nephew Lot, whom he loved and he invested in. He saw his nephew Lot make decisions and choices that forced him to separate. There are times and moments in life that you have to go a different way. Lot made decisions, and Lot put his lot, pun intended, in life, in bad people, with bad people. So Avram said, you want to go right, I go left, you go left, I go right, we've got to go separate ways. I can't be associated with you. We have to go a different direction. But what happened when Lot went to go live in Sodom, and Sodom was in trouble, and Lot was in trouble? Did Avram say, his problem, not my problem? He made the choice, he made the bed, let him lie in it. He put his lot with Sodom, Lot is on his own. No. Even though there was a point and a juncture they had to go separate ways, when Lot was in crisis, when Lot was in trouble, when Lot was collapsing under his burden, Avram jumps to rescue him, to bail him out, to lighten his load. And that's our mission and our mandate. It was true for Avram and Lot, and it's true for every one of us. It's true for the people we know. Do you care? Anyone following the stories? Baruch Hashem, 3 more hostages home. Please God, the rest should all come home immediately, today. Did you check what kind of yarmulke they wear? Do you love them? Do you hate them? What kind of life, what kind of lifestyle they lead? Jewish people have a burden, and we could be collapsing under it. Azov to Azov, let it go. In crisis, there is no enemy. There is no adversary. There is no other. There's just us. There is no sana'acha. There is only achicha. How? Azov to Azov. When there's a burden, when we're collapsing, let go and move on. Perach of Gimel Pasuk Yud Beis 23:12. Everything I taught you, be careful. Sorry, Pasuk Yud Beis. 6 days do your activities. On the 7th day rest. So that you may be content, your donkey and your ox and your maidservant and the stranger among you. Labosei Shrav Druk wonders, what a funny way to describe Shabbos. Let's read that pasuk again. 6 days accomplish your activities. On the 7th day rest, so that your ox and donkey can be content, and your maidservant's son and the stranger can be refreshed. So why should you keep Shabbos in your house? So that your vacuum can rest, so that your car can have a day off, so that your housekeeper doesn't have to show up. That's why you should keep Shabbos. What kind of bizarre pasuk is this? Says Rav Druk, that's why we should keep Shabbos? Tam mitzvah b'tzida l'man yanuach shorcha v'chamorcha. It could be a side benefit of keeping Shabbos, but that's the reason. Ketzad nitan l'havin zos ein lanu ela l'farish. So says Rav Druk, ki ratzon haTorah sheshmir Shabbos Yehudi tiyeh al zeh ha'ofen sheyashpiu masav ach al hachayos v'heimos v'kach yishlik ra pasuk b'yom hashvi tishbos ve'eza shvisha tishbos shvisa kazu shetashpi af al menucha shorcha v'chamorcha. It's not that the reason to keep Shabbos is so that your animal gets some rest, is that you should keep such a Shabbos that the entire atmosphere and environment changes, that even your animal's keeping Shabbos. Even the animal says, oh, I love Shabbos. Give me some to'ameha. The dog and the cat pull up for Raiva Derivin. They want the leftover cholent and kishka. Even your dog and your cat and your hamster and even the iguanas and the lizards say, oh, Shabbos. Say Shabbos. How do they know what Shabbos is? Because those iguanas and lizards, all week long, nobody walks in the park. Come Shabbos, hundreds, thousands of people walk through the park, and the iguanas and the lizards and the butterflies, they say, oh, Shabbos. Heilige Shabbos. They all speak Yiddish. Heilige Shabbos. Jews would only have dogs and cats that speak Yiddish. Heilige Shabbos. Leftover cholent. Rest. Says Rav Druk, such a beautiful insight. It's not that the reason we're keeping Shabbos is so that animals get Shabbos. It's that the metric and the measure of how sincere and real our Shabbos is, do we keep a letter of the law Shabbos that's a legal Shabbos, but the atmosphere, the environment, the climate in our home is the same? Or no, the Shabbos atmosphere, the Shabbos condition in our home, the entire environment changes. Montoya Circle is different on Shabbos. The whole circle is different. That even the birds are chirping and the lizards are slurping. I don't know, whatever lizards do. And the frogs are hopping and jumping. And the dogs and cats are schluffing. Because Shabbos. They can feel it. It's in the air. It should be such a Shabbos that the animals can feel it in the air. Ad kedei kach, such a Shabbos. Such a Shabbos. Oh. Alei elai ha'hara ve'yeh sham. I wanted to get to Perach of Dalet Pasuk Yud Beis. Chapter 24. Nasa v'nishma, eat and drink, serve Hashem. So many things we didn't get to. But chapter 24, verse 12. Vayomer Hashem Moshe, God says to Moshe, now the Torah is depicting, it's not chronologically in order, but the whole experience of Moshe climbing Har Sinai, and it says, Alei elai ha'hara, climb on the mountain, ve'yeh sham, ve'edna lachas luchas ha'evan, I'm going to give you there the Torah and the luchos, I'm going to give it to all there. Why does God say, climb the mountain and be there. If you climb the mountain, where else are you? So Rashi says, climb the mountain and be there. What does Hayeh Sham mean? Climb the mountain and be there. Hayeh Sham, says Rashi, for 40 days. You might have thought be there. Be there means come up and go down same day, in and out. No, be there means climb up, Hayeh Sham, and stay there for how long? 40 days. 40 days. That's how Rashi understands. Rav Druk says, Hayeh Sham, Shabo lahoros tachdei liknos Torah tzarach adam lekvias makom. Hayeh Sham, climb the mountain and be there. You know, you have the people who come to shul to daven. You have the pacers. They're wearing out the carpet in shul. They're pacing back and forth in this corner, that corner, in this row, in the front and the back. Whoa, buddy, relax. Hayeh Sham, Eleha alai hahara, climb the mountain, hayeh, and be there. Be there. You're supposed to be spending time with a child, with a grandchild, but you know you're all over. You're all over the park. You're all over the house. You're all over the living room. Hayeh Sham. Don't be absent present. Don't be distracted. Don't be pacing and running. Hayeh Sham. Be where you are. Don't be absent present. When it comes to Yaakov Avinu, Shelo kasva alav haTorah rak shalom haTorah, haTorah kasva yoshev olam kava atzman b'yeshiva. The idea of a makom kavua in shul. Have a set place. Have a set place doesn't mean Dalet Amos. Draw a 6-foot circle around your set place. That don't kick anyone out. Move over, because 6 feet around your set place is still called your set place. But the idea of a set place is that we'll concentrate and we'll elevate and we'll be enriched when we what? Have a set place. Have a kavua. So Aleha Hara, climb the mountain, Hayeh Sham. Hashem essentially told Moshe, leave your phone at the base of the mountain. I know that 2-3 million people texting you, WhatsApping you, calling you. I know that they need you. But you know what? When I'm with you, I want to be with you. And when you're out to dinner and you're scrolling and you're answering and you're watching, you're not out to dinner. When you're with your children and grandchildren pushing them on a swing, but you're looking at your phone, you're not with your grandchildren or your children. You may think you are. Your calendar may show you were, but you weren't. Don't be absent present. Alei elei hahara, climb the mountain, v'hayeh sham, and be there. Be where you are. Don't just climb a mountain, but then be somewhere else. The Baal Shem Tov said, you are wherever your thoughts are. You're not wherever you are physically. You are wherever your thoughts are, and that's what the Torah is telling us. Hayeh sham, be there. I have to be at Mincha in 3 minutes. 8 o'clock, we have the Siyam and Shir in memory of Esti Aleh Shalom. Please join us tonight. Thank you again for your flexibility with the timing. May we hear Besoros Tovos, Yeshuos, V'nechamos.